June 6, 1944, 2:37 in the morning. Somewhere over the English Channel, a C-47 transport shudders through anti-aircraft fire. Inside, a paratrooper from the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment checks his weapon one final time. The rifle across his chest weighs 9.5 pounds, 8 rounds in the clip. Semi-automatic action that fires as fast as he can pull the trigger. Cost to the United States government by war's end, $31. In less than 3 hours, that rifle will put him in a firefight against German soldiers armed with bolt-action Mausers. They'll work their bolts between every shot. He won't. And that difference, 8 aimed rounds to their 5, delivered twice as fast, will determine who walks away from a hedgerow in Normandy. The $31 rifle is about to change the mathematics of infantry combat forever. This is the rifle that made America the only nation in World War II to arm its entire infantry with semi-automatic firepower, the weapon that General George Patton called the greatest battle implement ever devised, the gun that cost $83 in 1942 and just $31 by 1945. And here's what nobody tells you. Nearly 90 years after its adoption, this rifle is still in official United States military service, still being carried, still being fired, still wearing the uniform. The M1 Garand, the rifle that outlived every weapon America ever built. 1917, the trenches of France. American doughboys crouch in mud, working the bolts of their M1903 Springfield rifles between every shot. 5 rounds, bolt back, bolt forward, 5 more rounds, bolt back, bolt forward. The same manual action soldiers had used since the 1880s. The Great War ends. The War Department does the math. And they don't like what they see. A soldier with a bolt-action rifle can fire perhaps 15 aimed shots per minute. A soldier with a semi-automatic, pulling the trigger as fast as he can acquire targets, might fire 40, maybe 50. The Army realizes something terrifying. In the next war, their infantry will be outgunned by whoever figures out semi-automatic technology first. But here's the problem nobody could solve. Semi-automatic rifles were complex, expensive, and notoriously unreliable. The recoil and gas pressures that cycle the action also create countless opportunities for failure. Dirt, mud, cold, heat. Any of these could turn a sophisticated mechanism into an expensive paperweight. The Army needed a rifle that could fire automatically, absorb battlefield abuse, work in every climate from Arctic snow to Pacific jungle, and, critically, be manufactured by the millions. They needed something that didn't exist yet. Enter John Garand. Born in Quebec, Canada, in 1888, Garand immigrated to Connecticut as a child and learned machinist skills in textile mills. He wasn't formally educated in firearms design. He was self-taught, a tinkerer, a man who saw mechanical problems others couldn't solve and worked them out in his head. In 1919, Springfield Armory hired him as a consulting engineer. His assignment? Create a semi-automatic rifle that could replace the bolt-action Springfield. He was given almost no budget, minimal staff, and 17 years to accomplish the impossible. 17 years of prototypes, 17 years of failed designs, 17 years of Army committees rejecting everything he built. Then, on August 3, 1933, everything changed. The Army designated Garand's final design the semi-automatic rifle, caliber .30, M1. On paper, it looked like a compromise. The rifle weighed 9.5 pounds, heavier than the Springfield it replaced. It fed from an 8-round en-bloc clip that ejected with a distinctive metallic ping when empty. The gas-operated action was complex, with over 60 individual parts. Critics within the Army called it impossible to mass-produce. Some production engineers at Springfield Armory openly doubted whether the design could ever be manufactured in meaningful quantities. But John Garand had done something remarkable. He hadn't just designed a rifle, he'd designed the tooling to manufacture it. The Army officially adopted the M1 in 1936, the Marine Corps and Navy followed by 1940. America became the only nation on Earth preparing to arm its entire infantry with semi-automatic rifles. Then came the cost problem. In 1942, each M1 Garand cost the government $83 to manufacture. That was expensive, nearly double what a bolt-action rifle cost. With millions of rifles needed, the price tag was staggering. But Springfield Armory and their engineers had a secret weapon: American industrial optimization. Year after year, they refined the manufacturing process. They developed new machining techniques. They streamlined assembly. They eliminated waste. By 1945, the cost had plummeted to $31 per rifle. $31, less than half the original price. Cheap enough to arm every soldier, sailor, and Marine in the United States military. The $31 rifle was ready for war. But here's what the history books get wrong about the M1 Garand. Everyone talks about the rifle's advantages: the semi-automatic action, the 8-round clip, the faster rate of fire. What they don't tell you is how the old guard fought against it. Veteran sergeants complained that soldiers would waste ammunition with a semi-automatic. Officers worried troops wouldn't learn proper marksmanship fundamentals. Some within the Army actively campaigned to keep the bolt-action Springfield as the standard rifle. The M1 wasn't just a new weapon, it was a revolution that threatened everything experienced soldiers thought they knew about infantry combat. And then came December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor changed everything. Springfield Armory went into overdrive. Before Pearl Harbor, the factory produced about 600 rifles per day. By January 1942, that number climbed to over 1,100 per day. By 1944, Springfield was producing nearly 4,000 M1 Garands every single day, 164 rifles per hour. Around the clock, 7 days a week. Winchester. Repeating arms joined the effort, adding another 500,000 rifles to the total. By war's end, over 4 million M1 Garands had been manufactured, more than any other American combat rifle in history up to that point. But production numbers don't win wars. Soldiers do. Normandy, June 6, 1944. O.B. Hill was a paratrooper with the 1st Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division. He'd trained on the old M1903 Springfield, but carried an M1 Garand when he jumped into France before dawn on D-Day. His parachute came down in the darkness. His rifle got wet during the landing. It didn't matter. The M1 worked anyway. Years later, Hill would describe his experience. "I liked the M1 very much. Better than the 03. It was semi-automatic, and since you didn't have to work the bolt, it was easier to fire. It had less recoil and an 8-round clip. He fought through Normandy with that rifle, got wounded, was evacuated to England, rejoined his unit in time for the Battle of the Bulge. When offered a choice of weapons, the M1, a Thompson submachine gun, or an M1 carbine, Hill chose to keep his Garand. "It was an efficient weapon that had got me through some tough situations," he explained. He cleaned it whenever he could, even in the frozen forests of Belgium. "I never had any problems with it." The hedgerows. Summer 1944. American infantry discovered something in the thick bocage country of Normandy. Their M1s gave them a decisive advantage in the close-range firefights that erupted along every hedgerow. German soldiers carried the Carabiner 98K, an excellent bolt-action rifle, but one that required working the bolt between every shot. American soldiers could fire 8 rounds as fast as they could pull the trigger. In a hedgerow ambush, where the fight might last only seconds, that difference was everything. By late summer 1944, many non-commissioned officers and field officers who'd been issued the lighter M1 carbine started trading them for Garands. The .30-06 round hit harder. It penetrated doors and masonry in urban combat. It reached through brush and log cover in the forests. The M1 wasn't just a rifle. It was a decisive advantage. The Pacific. 1942 through 1945. From Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima to Okinawa, the M1 Garand proved itself in some of the most brutal combat of the war. Japanese forces carried the Type 99 Arisaka, another bolt-action design. American Marines and soldiers, armed with semi-automatic Garands, could deliver overwhelming firepower in the close-quarters jungle fighting that characterized the island-hopping campaign. The rifle survived humidity that rusted other weapons. It functioned in mud, sand, and salt spray. It absorbed abuse that would have destroyed lesser designs. General George Patton, never a man to offer unearned praise, called the M1 the greatest battle implement ever devised. Coming from Patton, that meant something. The numbers tell a story that historians are still processing. Total M1 Garand production during World War II. Over 4 million rifles. Springfield Armory alone produced 3,526,922. Winchester contributed another 513,880. Combined World War II production, 4,040,802 rifles. That's enough to arm every American soldier who served in the European theater, twice over. But here's where the story gets remarkable. When North Korea invaded South Korea in 1950, the M1 Garand went back to war. Springfield Armory ramped up production again. International Harvester and Harrington and Richardson joined as new manufacturers. Another 1.5 million Garands were produced for the Korean War. The rifle that cost $31 in 1945 was still the backbone of American firepower a decade later. The longevity that defies explanation. The M1 was officially replaced by the M14 in 1957. But replaced is a generous term. The rifle served in Vietnam, not as the primary infantry weapon, but it was there, in the hands of advisors, allied forces, and specialized units. After Vietnam, the M1 Garand should have disappeared into history. It didn't. The Marine Corps Silent Drill Platoon still carries M1 Garands today. 24 Marines executing precision drill movements with hand-polished 10.5-pound Garands fitted with fixed bayonets. Every parade, every ceremony, every performance. The United States Air Force Academy Cadet Honor Guard uses M1 Garands. Almost every Reserve Officer Training Corps program in America, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, uses M1 Garands for drill and ceremony. The rifle adopted in 1936 is still in official United States military service in 2025. Nearly 90 years. The same basic rifle, still wearing the uniform. The global afterlife. But America isn't the only place where the M1 Garand refuses to die. Through military aid programs, the United States shipped hundreds of thousands of Garands to allied nations during the Cold War. Norway received over 72,000. The Philippines received over 34,000. Iran, South Korea, West Germany, Italy, Japan, Greece, Turkey. The list goes on. Many of those rifles are still in circulation. M1 Garands have been documented in combat as recently as the insurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan. They've been spotted in Yemen as late as 2015. In the Philippines, Garands were used in the 2017 Battle of Marawi, 75 years after the rifle's World War II debut. The $31 rifle from 1945 is still taking lives in the 21st century. There's a lesson in the M1 Garand that transcends military history. John Garand spent 17 years designing a rifle that experts said couldn't be mass-produced. He proved them wrong by designing not just the weapon, but the manufacturing process to build it. The Army adopted a rifle that revolutionized infantry combat, over the objections of traditionalists who thought soldiers would waste ammunition. American industry took an $83 rifle and, through relentless optimization, reduced the cost to $31, making semi-automatic firepower affordable for millions of soldiers. And that $31 investment created a weapon so durable, so reliable, so fundamentally well-designed that it's still in service nearly 90 years later. John Garand himself never received a penny in royalties. He transferred all rights to his design to the United States government. Congress tried to award him $100,000 in recognition. The bill failed. He died in 1974 in Springfield, Massachusetts, the same city where his rifle had been born 4 decades earlier. But his legacy? His legacy is still marching. O.B. Hill survived the war. He survived Normandy. He survived the Battle of the Bulge. He was wounded twice and came home to a country that would never fully understand what he and millions like him had experienced. The M1 Garand that saw him through those dark months in France and Belgium, the rifle he chose over every other weapon offered to him. It came from the same production lines as 4 million others. Same design, same $31 manufacturing cost, same 8-round clip. But to Hill, it wasn't a statistic, it wasn't a production number. It was the tool that kept him alive when German soldiers were meters away in the hedgerows, when the Ardennes forest was frozen solid, when everything depended on a rifle that worked every single time he pulled the trigger. Decades later, M1 Garands still hang in gun safes across America. Veterans kept them, collectors preserved them. The civilian marksmanship program still sells them to qualified citizens. Some of those rifles have been fired in anger. Some have never seen combat. But every single one carries the same DNA, the same design that John Garand perfected over 17 years, the same manufacturing precision that drove the cost from $83 to $31, the same reliability that made General Patton call it the greatest battle implement ever devised. The $31 rifle that outlived every gun America ever built, from a Canadian immigrant's workshop to the beaches of Normandy, from the frozen forests of Korea to the drill fields of Marine Barracks, Washington, from 1936 to 2025 and beyond. The M1 Garand, the rifle that refused to retire. If this story of American innovation and engineering gripped you, hit that subscribe button. Next week, we're covering another weapon that changed history. The story behind the rifle that nearly lost a war before it was ever fired in combat. The arsenal of democracy holds more secrets than you know, and we're just getting started.